Welcome back to Stu Structures. We're here to start our build on the Belington Union Station, so stay tuned. Okay, so in the last video I showed you the building we were going to start. The Belington Union Station, I've been looking forward to this. I think I have the window situation figured out and how I'm going to do that. At least I think it should work out alright. I still have not got my windows in excuse me, from San Juan yet. I'm hoping they get here soon. But I can go ahead and start things anyway. Most of you know by following some other builds that I normally build each wall section and then put all the walls together to form a building. As this one is built with the walls at the bottom, bottom 3 feet that lean outwards, well, they lean inwards. The bottom side is the wide side, and then they lean into where the top walls are. But it will be awkward to build this as whole wall panels and then put this thing together. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to start and work from the ground up with the knee walls, and then add the other walls in place above that, and just build it from the ground up on a piece of hardboard it's an artist board. It's a hard compress board. And go ahead and cut out the center of it so I can work into it from the below it and just build the walls out above it as I start this build. So I've not built one this way before, but we're going to see how this works. So let's just jump into it. So the first thing I did was clean off my bench. It was a total wreck from the last build. And then I gather all the pictures and the board that I'm going to use for the base for this, my measuring tools, and I'm going to start with this print here, and this gives me all the building dimensions and shows me where the doors and the windows are, because starting from the bottom up, that's my main interest right now. And also these platforms, I don't have length measurements on some of this, but this gives me enough measurements to figure out where the platform will be. So I'll lay the building out and the platform on this hot press board here and get things, I did narrow things a little here and there, not with the building, but with the platform. And then I cut the platform down to the edge of where the platform is going to be, the board, and cut the center out of the building in case I need up into the center of the building. And then from there I start working the foundation up. And basically what I'm going to do is the bottom board on this is 14 inches wide and 7 inches tall. And I don't have everything the exact size, but I went through my whole box of wood, and what I did find was, some pieces that I think will work, and I can fudge things, 1 inch in HO is not a big deal. And I found this board here, and I've got a nice wide piece of this, so I'm going to have to cut it into strips, but basically this is about 6 inches thick. And I need a piece for that base bottom board that's about 14 inches wide. So I just cut a whole bunch of strips of that same size for the very bottom board to glue on that white board to start my foundation and work my way up. Now I decided on the bottom of this I'm going to use this real thin brick sheet here, because this is going to have plenty of backing behind it, so this will work. And then I cut all my strips for the widths that I'm going to need to wrap around that whole bottom base of the wall. Then on top of that base, there's a narrow piece that's 6 inches thick, but it's about 7-8 inches wide. So I go ahead and cut all those strips as well. Now before I can really come through and start gluing all that down, I need to come back and measure where all my doors and windows are going to be. The windows won't be in this bottom edge of this, but the doors will come clear down to the ground, so I don't want to put or glue my baseboard where the doors are going to be, so I'm going to have to figure out their dimensions to be able to lay the baseboard out and start getting this into place. So, I'm coming back here. These doors don't get windows on the side, so I'm measuring the width of those, and that gives me two of the doors in the baggage end of the building's dimensions. Now the others do get windows beside of them, so I'm just kind of guesstimating here how wide that I'm going to make that with the windows in the sides of these. And I can make them however wide I want them to be, so it won't matter if this isn't exact. But now I'm going to come back with all that baseboard, and I'm going to start looking at where this needs to be and start cutting pieces for the baseboard. And once I get these side pieces here cut to the lengths and the angles where the corners are going to be, I'm going to come back and start gluing those into place. And everywhere there's a door, whenever I need to glue my next piece, I need to make sure the opening is wide enough for that door. And some of these threw me off my marks by a hair here and there, but at least I know I have the widths in it. And I get this whole side basically glued down, and then I come back and I'm going to get all the long lengths of the other sides glued down. And I just put these weights on them for about an hour or so to make sure that I'm just using a wood glue because it's wood to paper. And this gives me plenty of time to, for everything to adhere really well and set up before I move on to the next step. And then I've got all these tiny returns and the two long ends of the buildings to put in. So once that other is all set up and I know they're not going to move around on me, I just go ahead and cut all these small pieces and start getting all this into place. And that's the baseboard basically around the whole building except for where my doors are going to be. Now in the corners in some areas, you saw me use this spackle filler before for certain things, but I just cut the joints pretty wide on some of these or at the angles, so I'm going to come back and use this filler to fill all these holes and cracks because I want it to look like a solid stone around there and not pieces. Now this 3x3, what I'm going to do is on top these plate pieces, I'm going to come through and start cutting pieces the length of those and they're going to be glued down just inset about another 3 inches. And basically that gives me an edge to glue the brick from on the lower edge of where the angled brick is going to be. So I come through like I did the baseboard pieces and I just glue all the long pieces, and I come back and do the short pieces in between, and that gives me all of that ready for to glue the brick bottom sheets to. Now I need to get a measurement on the height of where that brick or the stone upper area is going to be. And once I figured out, all right, it's right at 4 foot, and these might be a little long, but I can cut them down later. I found this real thin piece of basswood here, and I'm going to cut the lengths of wall that I need to go behind this wall all the way up to where that stone ledge is on top. And the stone ledges you saw me cut before, so I'm going to grab those, and just little by little I'm going to come back and glue those onto the top edges of these stones. And you can see this setting into place and how the brick will go in between them. Now I can tell this is going to be tall and I need to cut it down just a little bit more, but basically it'll work for what I want to do. So then I just come back and start cutting all those pieces. And I didn't think about the overlap in the corners initially, so some of these I'm going to come back and just cut strips and add one by one the top stone ledge on the insides of that, because some of these have corners that are 45 that go out and meet the side walls that come into them. And once I have all those cut and glued on, then I start coming through and measuring all these and making sure that they're all going to work. Then I add that same 3x3 strip on the inside edge of that so that the brick will set back in the edge of this stonework too, and that gives me the top to glue the brick. Now what I did was I went ahead and took a just piece of that brick strip and cut a small piece just to test all these. And I did have to come back and cut the back wall down just a little bit, but then I'm going to come through and glue these in place just right on across the front of this building. Now I do have all the reliefs, the turns in between these panels that I got to put into place, but basically that's those in place. Now Once the glue sets up, then I can come back here and, turn this around and start the other side. But this is the biggest part, at least one side of it done. And I'm just going to build the other side the same. I come through and cut the panels. Everywhere there's corners, I file down the edges to a 45 degree. I cut the top stone edge that I'm going to glue onto that and cut 45s where they need to be on that and glue those together. And then I come back and, just like the other side, I'm going to go ahead and cut the 3x3s that'll be the top edge of where the brick glues into. And this is just exactly like I did the other side. I come back and glue those 3x3s in there and then go ahead and put my blocks in place and glue all those panels into place. Now the only thing missing is the ends, and then I've got these returns in the walls. And these I'm going to build as individual little units in place because, I'm not going to get that top stone piece exactly right and cut it. So I'm just going to build these in place as I go. Now I finally got in these windows from Grantline, and I need to start working with all this a little bit. These windows are built for wood and not brick structures. So I'm going to have to come back and trim these so that they're a casement type window. And you can see one on the right here after I trimmed off the excess wood overlap that would go into a wood structure. And I'm just going to come back and do that with these. And, I'm just doing 4 right now because I need to play with these to some degree to do my next step. Now these other windows that I showed you before from Teachy that came in, I also need to, get these de-sprued. These are casement windows, so I don't necessarily have to trim off any of the wood overlap for a wood structure off of these, but I need to get a couple of these out of the sprue so I can start working and figuring these out too. So I just take 1 sprue's worth loose and trim them and sand off all the, the odd places. And now I'm going to come back and just measure the height on these. And these are both right at 6 feet, and they're exactly the same height. Thank God, that works good for my building. Now on the building here, you can see the brick that surrounds the windows in that band around the building is about the same height as the windows. So I'm going to take this thick brick sheet that I had got out before and showed you before, and I'm going to cut 6-foot tall strips that will go in between all the windows on that next level of the building. And I'm just doing all this while I'm doing the other processes and trying to accomplish more things at once while I'm waiting for the glue to dry. And there you have this week's segment of building the Belington Union Station. Started out pretty good. I hope it all goes as smoothly. I mean, I've made a couple minor faux pas here and there, but everything was easily correctable. And when you're making things up as you go, everything just doesn't turn out the way you really think that it should. There's a lot of trial and error in scratch building, and I've got so many other things going on, I can't always think about everything as well as I should before I do it, I guess. And sometimes that bites me in the butt. But we've got a good start on this. We'll finish the knee walls next week and hopefully get the brick in those, and we got to start cutting the brick and working on the windows for the next layer up, and we'll just continue working from the ground up on this structure. I don't think it would have been any easier to build individual walls and then try to put this together later. I think there would have been a whole lot more nightmares. So I'm glad I chose to build this way. And we've still got some hurdles to overcome. The mullions and the windows. I've tried using a couple techniques, and I'll show you that in the next video, and maybe how we can overcome all that situation, because there's a whole lot of 8x8 panes in these windows, and it's a pain. So I've got to figure out how to deal with that. I got to finish scratch building the doors, because in the next layers we build those walls up, we need to go ahead and get doors in. And You know, it's all a make it up as you go thing, like I said earlier. So anyway, thank you for coming back and sharing this time with me. I do appreciate it. And tune in next week and we'll continue this build on the Belington Union Station. And happy model railroading.